Everything you thought you knew about the story of Joseph is about to be reimagined. Before Jesus walked the earth, before Moses parted the sea, there was a boy betrayed by his own blood, left for dead and raised by God to power in the most powerful empire of its time. Now, the team behind The Chosen is turning that ancient heartbreak into the next groundbreaking biblical series. And what's coming will change everything. It's official, Joseph of Egypt is becoming the next big biblical series from Dallas Jenkins, the creator of The Chosen. And no, this isn't just another retelling. This is the beginning of something much bigger. For months, fans had been speculating about what would follow The Chosen. Would it be Paul's journey? Would it be the Exodus? But Dallas Jenkins has surprised everyone by starting even earlier with the story that sets it all in motion. The rise of Joseph is not just about dreams and betrayal, it's about laying the foundation for God's master plan. Centuries before Jesus is even born, Joseph's story is filled with moments that break your heart and then fill it again, just like The Chosen. This new series is being made in partnership with Amazon MGM Studios and Jenkins 5 and 2 Studios. And that alone should tell you something. Big is coming. Amazon doesn't just pick up any faith-based project. The fact that they're backing Joseph of Egypt means they know this series has the potential to shake audiences around the world. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Dallas Jenkins is not just producing it. He's working with Craig Wright, the same writer who created the hit show Greenleaf, a drama that dealt with faith, family, leadership, and secrets inside a megachurch. That combination, Jenkins' heart for the gospel and Wright's talent for emotional storytelling, means this show is going to hit differently, and it's going to hit hard. The official summary reveals everything we need to know to prepare ourselves. Betrayed by jealous brothers, Joseph defies all expectations and rises to incredible power in Egypt, second only to Pharaoh. But when his past catches up with him, he is confronted with the ultimate test. It's simple, it's powerful, and it's terrifying. Because those who know the story understand exactly what this ultimate test means. Joseph doesn't just rise to power, he faces a decision that could either destroy his brothers or redeem them. It's the kind of dilemma that breaks even the strongest hearts. And now, with Dallas Jenkins behind the wheel, we know this isn't going to be a surface-level, safe Sunday school story. It's going to go deep, it's going to get messy, and it's going to be real. We already know the story of Joseph is full of betrayal. His own brothers sold him into slavery. He was thrown into prison for a crime he didn't commit. And even when he finally found favor with Pharaoh, Joseph had to face the very people who destroyed his life. What would you do if the people who ruined your childhood stood in front of you, begging for help, and you had the power to destroy them or save them? That's the kind of moment this show is built on. High stakes, human, honest, and full of emotion. Just like The Chosen, this series will explore not just what happened, but what it felt like, what it cost, how Joseph wept alone in a prison cell, how he fought to hold on to hope, and how his gift ability to interpret dreams became the very tool God used to raise him up. But this story won't start where most people expect. Dallas Jenkins has already confirmed that Joseph of Egypt will begin much earlier, diving into the backstory of Jacob, Rachel, and Leah. We're going to see the birth of the 12 brothers, the future leaders of the 12 tribes of Israel. That means we're getting a deep emotional foundation before the betrayal even happens. We'll understand why Joseph was loved more than the others. We'll see how the family dynamics shaped what was to come. And once that betrayal hits, it's going to cut even deeper. And then there's the casting rumor that has everyone buzzing. Could Shahar Isaaciah Simon Peter from The Chosen be stepping into the role of Joseph? Fans are already begging for it. And honestly, it makes sense. Shahar is known for his ability to show vulnerability and strength in the same breath. He can carry a heavy, emotional role, and let's be honest, he has the right look for the part. Joseph was described as handsome, favored, and full of charisma. If the rumor is true and Shahar is cast, it would create a powerful spiritual thread between The Chosen and Joseph of Egypt, two different eras, one divine narrative. And the idea of seeing Shahar portray Joseph, enduring heartbreak after heartbreak, and still choosing forgiveness. It's enough to send chills down your spine. But don't think this is just another Bible show. Dallas Jenkins has made it clear this is part of a bigger plan. Joseph's story leads to Moses, and Moses' story leads to Jesus. That's the through line. This is not just entertainment. It's theology in motion. It's storytelling with eternal stakes. And if The Chosen proved anything, it's that people are hungry for these stories told with honesty, depth, and humanity. Jenkins is creating a Bible cinematic universe, and Joseph of Egypt is just the beginning. Before Joseph stood before Pharaoh, before he became the second most powerful man in Egypt, before he even stepped foot in a prison cell, there was only pain. A young boy who dreamed big, a father who loved him more than all the rest, and brothers who couldn't stand the sight of him. This is where Joseph of Egypt begins, not with power, but with heartbreak. Dallas Jenkins has made it clear that this show will not skip over the early wounds. It will linger there. It will show us how deep the jealousy went, how the family cracks widened into betrayals that couldn't be undone. And that's what will make this series so powerful, because it doesn't rush toward miracles. It walks through the suffering first. We're going to see how the seed of hatred grows. We'll feel it. We'll sit with Jacob as he unknowingly stirs division. We'll witness the tension build between Rachel and Leah, and we'll watch as Joseph becomes the target simply for being loved. And when the moment comes when Joseph is thrown into that pit by the very people he called family, it's not going to feel like a scene from the past. It's going to feel like something we've lived through. Because betrayal by your own blood is timeless. It's personal. And in the hands of Jenkins, it won't be distant scripture, it'll be living emotion. He has always had a gift for showing us the humanity behind the holiness. He doesn't just tell Bible stories, he breathes life into them. And now, he's turning his full attention to one of the most tragic, yet ultimately redemptive, stories in all of Scripture. The camera may not have started rolling yet, but make no mistake, this project is alive. Let's talk about the power behind Joseph's fall. This is not a character who rises because of luck or chance. His climb out of the pit is painful, slow, and covered in silence, years of imprisonment, isolation, accusation. He is misunderstood, used, and forgotten. But through it all, he holds on to one thing, the belief that God has not left him. And that's what sets him apart. Not his beauty, not his dreams, but his unshakable faith, even when everything else is stripped away. This series is going to show us that kind of faith. Not the easy, preachy kind, but the kind that bleeds, that doubts, that breaks down in the dark, and still refuses to let go. Joseph's gift of interpreting dreams is not a magical talent, a calling forged in pain. It's what brings him to Pharaoh's court. It's what places him in power. But more than that, it's what keeps him connected to his Creator. While the world forgets Joseph, heaven doesn't. And when famine spreads across the land, and Egypt becomes the only place with food, Joseph is no longer just a foreigner or a prisoner. He becomes the gatekeeper of life. And just like that, the very brothers who sold him into slavery will be forced to come to him for mercy. Can you imagine that moment? The same faces that once looked down into the pit, now bowing before the man they tried to destroy. That is the kind of tension this show is built on. A single breath between revenge and forgiveness. And that brings us to the deeper purpose of this story. Because yes, it's about betrayal and power, but it's also about timing, divine timing. Joseph could have escaped the pain earlier. He could have been freed from prison by men, but he wasn't. He had to wait. Because God wasn't just preparing a path for Joseph, he was preparing Joseph for the path. And when the time was right, not a moment too soon, Joseph was lifted up not just to save Egypt, but to save the very people who cursed him. That's the kind of narrative arc that hits you in the soul. And it's exactly the kind of arc Jenkins loves to explore. Now, let's not forget what Dallas said. Every Bible story we tell will have the same approach, finding the humanity in it, so that people can see themselves in the story. And with Joseph of Egypt, that approach is everything. Because how many of us have been overlooked, rejected, lied about, left behind? Joseph's story isn't just history, it's healing. And Jenkins knows that. This isn't a show designed to impress. It's a show designed to pierce the heart. And now that Joseph of Egypt is officially in development, a whole new level of anticipation is building. Fans of The Chosen are already calling it the most exciting Bible-based project in years. Why? Because they know Jenkins won't water it down. He's going to show the beauty and the brutality, the dreams and the droughts, the coat of many colors and the pit of darkness. And somehow, through it all, he'll remind us that even when life feels like it's spiraling out of control, God is still writing the story. Joseph's journey doesn't just climb, it soars, but only after plunging into its darkest depths. One day, he's thrown into a pit by his brothers. Days later, he's sold into slavery in a foreign land. And for years, it seems like that's where his story might end. A forgotten slave in Egypt, silenced by fear, surrounded by enemies, and misunderstood at every turn. But this is exactly where God begins to move. Not when Joseph is strong, but when Joseph is broken. And in Joseph of Egypt, this transformation from the lowest place to the highest throne is going to hit with an emotional force. Few are ready. Because Dallas Jenkins has never been interested in easy victories. He's interested in earned redemption, and this series is about to deliver just that. Once Joseph enters Potiphar's house, things seem to take a turn for the better. He earns respect, he rises in status. But just when you think he might be free from suffering, the floor falls out again. He's falsely accused by Potiphar's wife, thrown into prison, forgotten once more. If you thought the betrayal by his bros was brutal, this next betrayal is worse, because it happens after Joseph has finally begun to heal. That kind of devastation, that kind of emotional reset isn't just tragic. It's relatable. How many times have we thought healing had come only for more pain to follow? That's what this show is going to explore. How Joseph keeps his soul alive even when the world tries to crush it. And it's in that prison where something sacred happens. Joseph interprets the dreams of two men, one of whom will eventually stand beside Pharaoh. But again, Joseph is forgotten. Time passes, years, not months. And this is where we'll see Jenkins do what he does best. Linger in the waiting. Not skip past it. Not fast forward through it. But stay there. With Joseph, with the silence, with the unanswered prayers. Because it's in the waiting that Joseph is transformed. And when Pharaoh finally has a dream that no one can understand, the moment Joseph has been unknowingly prepared for finally arrives. He is called up, out of the dungeon, into the palace. And the drama doesn't stop there. When Joseph interprets Pharaoh's dream and warns of a coming famine, something shifts not just in the room, but in history. Pharaoh appoints Joseph as his second-in-command from prisoner to prince. And this is not just a political promotion, it's a divine setup. Because soon, the famine spreads. And the people who once lived in comfort are forced to beg for survival. And where do they go? Egypt? To Joseph, including the brothers who started all this pain in the first place. This is where the emotional temperature of the show is going to explode. Joseph, standing in glory. His brothers bowing in desperation. And here's the twist. They don't recognize him. The very men who threw him away are now begging for his help, not realizing who he is. But Joseph remembers everything. The faces, the voices, the moment they left him to die. What happens next isn't revenge, it's revelation. Joseph tests them, he hides his identity, he forces them to face their past without knowing they're being watched by the very person they wronged. And every choice he makes from here on out is filled with pain, hope, and the weight of destiny. It's no longer about survival, it's about restoration. And this is what Dallas Jenkins knows how to tell better than anyone. In the middle of this family drama, something bigger is happening. Something spiritual. Joseph begins to see that this wasn't just about him. That every step, every betrayal, every prison wall, every sleepless night was leading him to this. To become the vessel through which God would save not only Egypt, but Israel. His story becomes more than personal. It becomes prophetic. It sets the stage for everything that will come later: Moses, the Exodus, the law, and finally, Jesus. And that's why this series isn't just important, it's foundational. And we have to talk again about Dallas Jenkins' vision for a Bible cinematic universe. This isn't just another show. This is the beginning. The start of a connected, intentional plan to tell the great story of Scripture with depth, beauty, and truth. Joseph of Egypt leads to Moses. Moses leads to Jesus. Each show stands alone, but they're woven together by the same divine thread. Jenkins is doing something no one in Hollywood has done before, creating a spiritual saga that spans centuries and ties it all to the person of Christ. And the timing couldn't be more perfect. With The Chosen set to conclude with season 6 and 7 releasing between 2026 and 2028. Joseph of Egypt may land right in the middle or just after. That means fans won't have to wait long to stay in the world Jenkins has built. And with Amazon Prime Video now fully backing the series, the production scale, reach, and visual scope will be massive. This isn't going to be a low-budget retelling. This is going to be a cinematic masterpiece crafted with heart, funded with purpose, and delivered with power. So the question is no longer if you're going to watch, the question is are you ready? Because Joseph of Egypt isn't just a story about an ancient man in a colorful coat. It's a story about how God uses pain to prepare us, betrayal to shape us, and forgiveness to set us free. What makes Joseph of Egypt more than just a historical drama is the deep, spiritual truth woven beneath every scene. This isn't only a story of family betrayal or political rise. It's a divine shadow, a living prophecy of what was to come. Dallas Jenkins understands that he's not just making biblical television. He's building bridges between Old Testament pain and New Testament redemption. And Joseph, more than almost any figure before Christ, reflects the heart of the gospel. Betrayed by his own, falsely accused, forgotten in a dark place, yet later exalted and used to save the very ones who rejected him. Sound familiar? That's because the story of Joseph is a mirror to the story of Jesus. It's no accident that the New Testament writers often saw Joseph as a type of Christ. He was the beloved son, favored by his father, set apart from his brothers not for pride, but for purpose. And because of that calling, he was hated, rejected, stripped of his robe, left for dead. But God was not finished. Joseph's suffering was not the end. It was the beginning. And that's the theme Jenkins is going to pull to the surface. That suffering is not a curse, it's preparation. In the hands of God, rejection becomes rescue. Joseph went down to the pit so that he could one day pull others out of it. That's why this series has the potential to move people in ways they don't expect. It's not just about faith, it's about identity. How many of us have felt unseen, unchosen, cast aside? Joseph shows us that God sees in the dark, that he is present even when everyone else disappears, that the delay is not the denial, it's the development. And Dallas Jenkins, through his storytelling, is going to make sure we feel every step of that journey. From Jacob's household to Pharaoh's throne, from famine to forgiveness, this story isn't just about a man who made it. It's about a God who never let go. And when Joseph finally reveals himself to his brothers, the emotional weight of that moment is going to crush us. He doesn't scream. He doesn't seek vengeance. He weeps. And he says something that echoes through the centuries. You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. That one sentence is the foundation of everything Jenkins is building, because that's what The Chosen has been about. That's what Moses will be about, and that's what the Bible's cinematic universe will echo again and again. God takes the broken things and uses them to restore. We'll also see that Joseph of Egypt isn't a story locked in the past. It's alive now. It speaks into modern, pain-divided families, false accusations, dreams delayed, and wounds that never seem to heal. But through it all, it tells us something powerful. You're not alone. Joseph was not alone in the pit. He was not alone in prison. And you are not alone in your struggle. The show will not preach this message. It will live it. Every scene, every moment of tension, every tear will preach without a pulpit. That's the kind of storytelling Jenkins believes in. And that's why this series is more than entertainment. It's a ministry. And let's not forget, Joseph of Egypt is only one piece of a much bigger vision. Jenkins has already announced plans for a Moses series and another called The Way of the Chosen. Based on the book of Acts, these shows will stand on their own, but together they will trace the movement of God across time. From Joseph's pit to Moses' burning bush, to Paul's missionary journeys, and ultimately to the cross. This isn't just a universe. It's a timeline of redemption. And if The Chosen has proven anything, it's that the hunger for this kind of depth and truth is very real. That's why the timing of Joseph of Egypt matters. Right now, the world is tired of shallow storytelling. Audiences want meaning. They want emotion. They want truth told in a way that touches the soul. That's what Jenkins is delivering. Not watered-down religion, not cheap dramatizations, but raw, spiritual reality. And in a time when Hollywood often seems disconnected from anything sacred, this project is a breath of fresh, holy air. And here's something that shouldn't be missed. The fact that this series is being backed by Amazon MGM means it will reach millions who may never step inside a church, but who will click play out of curiosity and encounter a story that reaches straight into their heart. That is what makes Joseph of Egypt so dangerous in the best way. It's not just for the faithful, it's for the searching, for the skeptical, for the broken. Because Joseph's story isn't wrapped in religion, it's wrapped in reality. And reality, when told truthfully, points directly to God. Now imagine this, the same actor who brought us Simon Peter's raw humanity in The Chosen could bring Joseph's pain and power to life. If Shahar Isaac is cast in the lead, it won't just be a casting decision, it will be a message. That these stories, these characters, these moments of divine encounter are all connected. That we're not watching isolated stories, we're watching God's grand design unfold before our eyes. And to witness that kind of connection between the shows, that's not just smart, that's sacred.